star 572-0383 and 572-0215. Rev-Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
Join the United Workers' Party this and every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 FM for an educational and informative program, Meet the Opposition. Participate in exciting discussions from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be in the know every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
It's now time for Meet the Opposition with your host, Leonard Spider Montoot. Mr. Montoot, welcome once again.
Good morning, Andre. Thanks for having me once again. And let me say a special good morning to all our listeners and should I say viewers who are regular followers of Meet the Opposition. Today I have two guests actually for the first part. We will have Jeshran Andrew, who is the president of the United Workers' Party Youth Arm, and we'll be discussing predominantly matters pertaining to youth. And then afterwards, we will have Mr. Tommy Descat, who is the endorsed candidate for Castries South for the United Workers' Party, who will be discussing some matters pertaining to GPH and, in fact, Castries South. So today, to start off, I just want to just take a quick overview, a brief look at what has transpired in the last few days. And I will start from Saturday. Saturday, I think, drove home the reality that has escaped many St. Lucians for some time now. Because what took place on Saturday is not a new phenomenon, is not something that just transpired out of the blue. It has been going on for a while, and it has been going on with very little attention paid. We have become so used to it that it appears to be normalized and we don't pay much attention. But I think what was different with Saturday was the fact that the gun violence took place on the street of Castries, broad daylight, while citizens were going about their daily business, their daily routine, and in the process, some of them actually got hit, were shot by, well, I wouldn't say stray bullets, but by indiscriminate the use of guns in the city. So at the end of the day, in the aftermath, we had 2 people dead and several people injured. Now, talking about several people injured, I'm hearing all kinds of figures about 50 murders, 51 murders so far for this year. But I've heard nobody talk about the number of people who have been shot, albeit that they did not die. I am prepared to hazard a guess and to say that there are probably 3 times the number of people who actually died from gunshots, who are nursing gunshot injuries or who are carrying the scars of bullets around St. Lucia. Now, that may sound insignificant to the extent that I've heard nobody talk about that. But just imagine, especially those who are not involved in any gang activities or illegal activities, going about their business and being shot innocently. Can you imagine the trauma? Can you imagine the psychological effect it has on those people? Can you imagine the cost to those people because they must get health care and so on? Can you imagine the impact on their families? Has anybody checked to find out, whether those people require counseling, whether those people, in some cases, perhaps become maimed to the extent that they cannot provide anymore for their families or for themselves and so on? Has anybody made a check on that? These are all consequences of the gun violence, the crime, the murders that are taking place in this country today. And some things are just overlooked. I'm sure there's nobody who can tell me how many people have been shot, because it's not uncommon to hear 2 people died, 3 people died, but 4 more were injured by gunshot. 1 person died, but 2 others were injured, or 2 people were shot, none of them died, and so on. So much so that there are people who have been shot and died later, and we don't even know. They don't even count among the 50 or 51 homicides that we're talking about, because, of course, there is a concerted, deliberate effort to suppress the figures on homicides in this country, rather than to make that concerted effort to suppress the incidence of those crimes taking place in this country. So on Saturday, what happened was 2 young men in the prime of their lives, in the mid to late 20s, gunned down and killed. But in the process, some innocent passers-by, people going about their business, citizens, ordinary citizens, got caught. And I'm hearing stories like, this lady talking about she went to Castries to do her business and she going at her home with blood stains on her clothes and so on. Why? Because she was in the vicinity of where the incident took place, and the blood she's talking about is human blood that spilled on her. You're talking about a lady who came to Castries with her young son, probably well excited, going and get his new stuff for the reopening of school, and he and his mother both got shot in the process. People who had nothing to do with what was going on. That is the state of affairs in the country. That is the situation that we face, that some do not want to hear you speak about, some do not want to speak about. However, they're hardly doing anything about it. And so I think it was a bit of a wake-up call to St. Lucians, because you see, unless it hits home, it's not my business. And so when we realized that I could have been going to the market on Saturday, like I do sometimes, I could have been going to Castries to do my commercial activities, like I do sometimes, and I could have been the person who got that bullet. That is what gave us the wake-up call. Or it would take for a relative of ours or ourselves to be shot for us to realize that what is going on there has everything to do with us. The fact that you're not a gangster doesn't mean you're not in danger. Every one of us is in danger because of what is taking place in this country. We have rampant gun-related violence going on our streets, people dying all the time, and not enough is being done. When you say so, people want to take it personal and so on. But I couldn't be bothered. I am a St. Lucian, and I'm concerned about the quality of life that I can enjoy in my country. I chose to live here. I could have done like other St. Lucians and go elsewhere to live. But I chose to live here, and I want to live a good life right here. When I talk about a good life, I don't have to be wealthy. I want to be free, I want to be safe, and I want to be able to survive. That is all I ask for in my country, and I don't think that is too much to ask for. Now, talking about leaders, talking about government, when you talk about crime, first thing they're going to tell you, do not politicize crime. Crime should not be politicized. Well, guess what? Crime is all our business. Yes, it is our business. And as part of my business, I am doing my part as a law-abiding citizen. I want you to do your part. If you have offered yourself as a leader, okay, and taken the responsibility to see after the well-being of St. Lucians. Let me remind those who are talking about crime should not have anything to do with politics, that the first and primary responsibility of any government is the safety and security of its citizens. Let me repeat that. The primary responsibility of any government is the safety and security of its citizens. Our government must do what it takes to protect us in our country. So don't give me that crap about, what does that have to do with the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister himself, he chose himself to take the portfolio of national security, okay, and justice. Nobody gave it to him, he took it. And they want to talk about, he's not a police and all that kind of thing. Well, that kind of cop-out is not good enough and unacceptable. If you're not a police and you feel it's only police who can do the job, get a police to do the job, okay? You have failed as a Minister of National Security. You have failed dismally. And I'm asking the Prime Minister to fire I'm saying it again, probably for the umpteenth time. I am asking the Prime Minister to fire the Minister of National Security because of his dismal performance as Minister of National Security. First and foremost, Prime Minister, you must remember that you did not even have a Minister of National Security when you named your cabinet initially. An important portfolio such as this, you forgot that you had to appoint one. When quizzed about it, you eventually appointed yourself. What has happened since you became Minister of National Security? Now, you see, the thing about it is that we, because of political affiliation, just spew all the nonsense we hear from politicians that we support. I am not part of that. I deal with the reality. And the reality is, since Philip J. Pierre assumed the mantle of Minister of National Security, homicides, murders in this country has spiraled, okay? In 2021, we had a record 75. A couple of years later, we equaled it. Last year, we broke it with 77. This year, we are well on our way again. If that is not a dismal failure, tell me what is. Now, I've heard the attempt to deflect lately by supporters of the Labour Party, and that is what the Labour Party has indoctrinated them with, to go out and say. When the UWP was in office, crime, what was the biggest leap in terms of the number of homicides? And I know they're referring to, I think it was 2017, it was 29, and in 2018, it skyrocketed to 60. And of course, there was outrage, including from the St. Lucia Labour Party, and quite rightly so, I might add. And what the government had to do was to address it and do something about it. What did they do about it? They brought down the figures. The next year, it was in its 50s. And if you argue with me that it was still 50s too many, I will say yes, because if we can reach the ultimate, the utopian position of having no murders, that would be great. But they at least brought it down. But the argument is, the biggest jump and so on. Yeah, the biggest jump was from 29 to 60. So what, when it was once 29, now it's 77. Isn't that a bigger jump? Why you don't talk about that? Since the Prime Minister has taken up the portfolio, since the St. Lucia Labour Party is in office, you have more ministers responsible for crime-related matter than ever before. And what do we see? Increasing numbers every year. And you do not want people to speak about it. And on top of that, it's not even to say as if, well, we are seeing where people are being apprehended, people are being brought to justice, and so on. You know, I am prepared to say that at least 80% of the cases go unresolved. And the few that could have been resolved, what are we hearing from our police commissioner? That the evidence has disappeared. You tell me, I must be comfortable in a country for a situation like this. I must not speak about that, you know. That is our reality here, and that is the situation. And if you want to defend party and politicians and have this situation perpetuated, I am not going to join you. I'm not going to be part of that, because that is not a safe situation for any of us. That is not a safe situation for our country. My life is in danger with the situation that exists right now. Our country's future is in danger with the situation that exists right now. We talk about the loss of life, and of course, quite rightly so, because that is, I always say, final. When you lose your phone, you can buy another phone, or somebody can give you another phone. When you lose your life, that is it. The finality of it makes it the most crucial thing there is. But there are other aspects of crime that we have to take into consideration. What about the economic fallout of crime? Our main industry is tourism. We continue the way we are going, we're going to get countries issuing advisories asking their citizens not to visit St. Lucia. You know, the travel ban and all of those. You know what implication that will have for us in St. Lucia? Has anyone stopped to think of those things? You know, our healthcare system that is already dismal, that is already under pressure. When every week we have 6-7 people being shot. Now, you have to understand the trauma of a bullet and, the kind of injury it causes and so on. You think they'll have time for me when I come there for complain about my little headache and so on, when, they have to deal with those emergencies and so on, put in more strain, more pressure. How many ICUs we have here, that we can take care of so many traumatic situations? Have you all asked yourself that question? The cost of having to do that, all of those things. We have to take into consideration. Not to mention, when people begin to become numb about the loss of life, when the average St. Lucian would have just, while going along their daily business, see someone being killed and so on, eventually we become almost immune to the senses, the feeling and the psychological consciousness that is not right and so on, and we just see it as normal, as we are beginning to as is beginning to happen already in this country. These are the things we have to take cognizance of. These are the things we have to be concerned about, not defending politicians who are failing, and we're not telling them that they are failing. I'm sure if every St. Lucian would raise their voice and let the St. Lucia Labour Party, especially the Prime Minister, know that things cannot continue as it is, something would have been done, something better, something more would have been done. You cannot tell me, rather than improve crime fighting, you are diminishing the crime fighting capacity of our force that is responsible for law and order in this country, the police force. And by that I mean you disbanded, and never mind all the denials you're into, you pretending that you do not know. You disbanded the K9 unit, okay? All of a sudden, scanners became damaged and so on. When the K9 unit was reinstated because of pressure, the police dog died mysteriously. When we think that we'll go forward in making examples with some of the murderers, the criminals who perpetrate the crimes against people in St. Lucia, innocent people especially, evidence is disappearing. You're trying to tell me I must have confidence in a government that presides over a situation like that and hardly even see it fit to say a word most of the time? And it didn't escape me that there were weekends. This weekend wasn't the worst bloody weekend, no. It was just a startling one because of what happened to innocent people and how it was so brazen while and the gunmen were firing bullets among innocent people who had nothing to do with their cause, you know. But we have had many weekends of 3, 4 more murders, and you didn't hear a word. You did not hear a word from the authorities. And what authorities I'm talking about? The politicians who told us that they were the most ready for the job at hand and who took the job, okay, under the pretext that they would do something better than what obtained before. Now we see that they're doing worse. We're not supposed to talk about it. We're not supposed to say something, you know. I want to say this. The fact that all of these murders take place weekend after weekend, even during the week, I understood, well, was it yesterday or the night before?
Yeah.
Night before someone was murdered. You're not going to talk, you're not going to hear that. Tune to your radio, you're not going to hear it. That's not news anymore. Like I told Andre the other day, Andre, don't expect me to come here in the morning and say it's bright and sunny. People do that in England and America and those places where it snows, it rains, it does. So the weather is a subject. The weather is not a subject here. Like I say to you, if you want to know what the weather is, it's partly cloudy and sunny. That's what the weather is here every day. It's not a subject. We don't discuss that. So when we don't discuss crime, when we don't discuss murders, you know what that means? It's normal. That's an everyday thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening to us in this country. Is that acceptable? Is that what you want? I don't. And so, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Sorry. Did I miss that? You said there was another
yes.
homicide?
Yes. Well, shooting. I don't know
I don't know if the person passed.
I don't know if the person passed away. But there were two people were shot.
Yes.
2 people were shot the night before.
And where did that happen?
In the Marshall area.
If I'm not mistaken.
And if you don't know where the Marshall area is, that's the area the Prime Minister represents. Yeah. You know, by the way, I have to say that, you know, the Prime Minister has nothing to say. Sometimes when 4 or 5 murders, he has nothing to say. Pregnant lady, 7 months pregnant, he has nothing to say. But there was a gentleman in Marshall who got shot. Okay, was it Kwame, that's the name?
Yeah.
Yes, he had something to say. He visited the scene and so on. You know, these are the things. This gives signals to people, you know. Don't think we don't get the message. We do. We do. And you're speaking loudly when you do things like that.
And talking about getting the message, Mr. Montour, I'd just like you to explain to our listeners and viewers why your party decided to cancel the event.
Okay, good.
Yeah, on Sunday.
On Saturday, there was rampant shooting in Castries. Indiscriminate shooting in Castries, where even innocent people who had nothing to do with what was going on were shot. It was not the first shooting incident in Castries. It has been going on for weeks. And here we are, the day after, having a mass event. Okay? Well, I'm being optimistic here right now. Thousands of people probably would have been there. Okay? If I can say so. On that same day, the Labour Party is having a big youth rally. Andre, it is the same police who has to come to provide security for the United Workers' Party event. It is the same police who have to provide security for the SLP's event. And it's the same police who have to deal with the crime that is going on, the shooting on the streets that is going on. First of all, to investigate what took place on Saturday, and to be prepared and to be on the lookout for reprisals. The same police. Now, you may have your position on that, and I'm not saying that they are not good police officers. I'm simply saying I don't have the confidence that they have the capacity to handle all of that. So when the United Workers' Party said, one, in the interest of security, because the police will be overstretched and so on. Two, in sympathy and empathy with the victims of the crime that took place there, they are going to put off the event. I am telling you, I was looking forward to the event, but I thought that was a very judicious decision to be made on the part of Alan Chasney and the UWP. On the other hand,
there was no way to tell if that would have carried on
into
the following day as
that's
well.
right.
So that's something
That's
that
right.
had to be taken into consideration.
Now, on the other hand, the sitting government, who has the responsibility for the safety and security of our people, couldn't be bothered. They went ahead with their event anyway. And while St. Lucians were mourning, while St. Lucians were dying, while St. Lucians were bleeding, while St. Lucians were crying, while St. Lucians were in fear, the Labour Party had a grand old time in Dennery, partying, celebrating, dancing in the face of what was going on with the rest of us. I think that was in Portis, I think that is actually despicable for leaders in a country to have done that. I think what the UWP did was more appropriate. They had an indoor event, scaled down indoor event, where it was more about prayers and worship and so on. Of course, they had a little political thing about what they will do and what they will not do and all of that. And so I think that was more appropriate, and so, I mean, I don't want to dwell on it too much because I have a guest right here, Andre, and I want to bring my guest in on this. So, Jeshron, welcome to Meet the Opposition. Is that your first time?
Yes, it's my first time on
Okay.
this specific show.
Now, I suspect I'll have to start getting used to saying Meet the Government in Waiting, because the person who insisted that if he has to come on the show, I have to say that
Next, yeah.
he's coming next. So, Jeshron, you are a young man. Let's not try to run away from it. The perpetrators, the majority of them, perpetrators of gun violence in St. Lucia, are young men.
Young people, yeah.
The victims, predominantly, of course, innocent children, women, even pregnant mothers, but predominantly the victims are young men. What's up with our young men in this country? What's going on? Why do we have a situation where our young men have resorted to picking up the gun and turning it on each other, and for us to have an almost lawless situation where people are not safe in the streets of St. Lucia anymore? Can you, as a young man, and not just a young man, but you have been a youth leader, what comment can you make on that situation?
Well, Spider, first and foremost, I mean...
No, but let me just say, introduce you properly. You're the former president of the NYC,
National Youth Council, yes.
National Youth Council, and you are now the president of the United Workers' Party, UFAM.
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
So, first and foremost, Spider, I think critically, if you have to analyze a situation, guns in itself and ammunition is very readily available to those young men, to our youth. And I think that is really the beginning of the problem, the foundation of the issue. The guns and the ammunition, it continues to get through our borders. Nothing is being done to get some of those.
I was just
off the
about asking
streets.
you, how could guns and ammunition be readily available? It's not like bananas, you tell me you plant it here.
Right, we have no factory here producing
Exactly.
guns and ammunition, so it has to be coming through our borders, which is an issue, and I think our party has articulated in the past that protection of our borders is something that is of utmost importance. And I see this government doing nothing to do that. And it's very concerning for me as a young man as well. I mean, just a few days ago, I got a call whilst I was heading down south. And I needed to send an email quickly. So I decided to pull over to send that email. And my vehicle is tinted. So the place where I pull over, you had a few young men who were, I guess, liming or chilling in that area. And Spider, lo and behold, just from pulling over to the side of the road, the young men literally scattered. That goes to show you the level of fear, how the young people are thinking, the crime situation and how bad it is, that any random vehicle just pulling off the side of the road or stopping by anywhere near any group of young persons, and those young men didn't look like persons who might have been involved in any gang or crime or violence, but persons are extremely fearful for their lives, and the situation is dire at this time. I think when you look at some of the other countries, you see efforts from other governments, especially in the region, to try to curb crime. I think in Jamaica, as an example, they would have strengthened the penalties for persons found with guns or ammunition.
But I think they've done the same here, haven't they?
Yeah, but how much has it worked as a deterrent?
No, but my position on that is that's on paper somewhere.
Right.
Enforcement is what matters. You know?
Matters,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, Mr. Mansut, you asked a very good question to your guest. So, what's happening with young people? That's what he asked you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our young people, many of them, the other issue again is conflict resolution. You have a lot of drugs and whatnot being sold on the street, and a lot of them are being influenced by this whole 6 and 7 thing, which came out of Trinidad, if I'm not mistaken. And so young guys have aligned themselves to either of the gangs, either 6 gang or 7 gang, and on the back end you hear a lot of stories relating to the violence that's occurring, where somebody from 7 took out somebody from 6, and so 6 needs to go back to 7. There's just a whole back and forth with this.
But any idea as to what the genesis of this thing is? Any idea as to why they would be taking out each other? Because there must be a cause. Any idea?
Well, the Prime Minister told us that he knows everything. He hasn't shared that information with us. I think he's the one who we should really throw that question to. He indicated that he knows everything that is going on and everything that is related to the crime. So from where we sit today, it's impossible to know the nitty-gritty and the fine intricacies of what's taking place behind the scenes as it pertains to the ins and outs of the dealings of these 2 gangs. However, I know it has a lot to do with the street economy and what's happening back and forth between the 2. Disrespect.
But you talk about the street economy, Jeshron. You talk about the street economy, which means there's commerce of some kind going on among them. But if it's illegal, it's not like when you have a problem, you can go to the police.
Exactly.
So you settle it yourself in your way.
Right.
But I also think too, as a former youth officer, as a former teacher, as a former coach, what I find is that, let's not forget, there's that natural human feeling to want to belong.
Right.
Humans are naturally gregarious. They want to belong to something, associate with something, and so on. And if they're out there, Andre, and okay, maybe in your day you run and join Scout just because you wanted to be in it too. But while you're there, they teach you something, you learn some values because of what they do, what they engage in.
Right.
But I will get involved with the gang because I want to be part of the group. That's where the friends are, the partners, and so on. But it's what they learn there, what they get involved in there, and that's what it is. And that's where I think, Jeshron, we have an obligation to intercept and have options for youth in terms of, sports organizations, other developmental organizations for youth, and other activities for youth. And I think, I'm not saying that the government isn't doing any, but obviously it's not enough.
Sufficient at all.
And another thing I say too, we are in different times now. Jeshron, you won't know about that. I'm talking to Andre now. Andre, in the past, even if, your parents were poor and so on, but there was always somebody at home. When you came from school, even if it's your grandmother, go and wash the dishes, go and do this, go and do that, before you get a chance to go and play some marbles just around the area. Now, because of the life we live now, both parents very often have to work. If it is a single parent, worse yet, sometimes more than one job. When the children come from school, there's nobody at home, no guidance, nothing. They'd probably take off and go and get involved with the wrong crowd. Now, that is where, in the past UWP administration, we started an after-school program. Not only would they help the children with their homework, but engage them in activities, extracurricular activities, sports, arts, this kind of thing like technology and different things that will be of interest to them. These are the things, because you see, when you intercept from there, you prevent them from and you reshape them into thinking like upright citizens. And so that's what I think, is part of the problem.
So what is it that goes on in these gangs that would lure the young people to that kind of life? You spoke about an economy. Is it that they're being paid by these gangs? There's a leader and they get paid. It's not like a job they have to do. What makes it so attractive to them? What do you think?
Well, I from speaking to the average young person, I think that there is a level of sexiness that is attached to being a gun bearer or having certain jewelry or dressing a certain way or being associated with badness or being tough and you know being able to exercise your right to smoke your marijuana, and that sort of thing. So and there is that brotherhood that is created within those spaces that those young people have expressed they find very welcoming, and they're often taken care of by the leaders of those gangs. They won't go hungry. They will have transportation to move back and forth. It's a family, and it becomes very, very attractive.
That's interesting. You said it's a family.
Yeah. Many
now,
of those young people.
If your actual family is not present when you go home, there's nobody there. And so it's a family, and there's that need to belong. So that's interesting. But you talk about the thing. Andre, let's face it.
And by the way, these leaders, are they young people or much older individuals?
Well, I'm not part of the gang, so I will not have such detailed information. But I think from some of what I'm seeing around, some of them seem to be very young men, early 30s,
Yeah, but I was saying, Andre, when you were growing up, you see, it's what's around you that you look to, that appeals to you. You wanted to be a fireman, you wanted to be a policeman, just because maybe you climb of the uniform and all of that thing. So you probably don't know what they do, but you want to be one.
Right.
When you see the fellow with the gold chain and the nice car and things, so you want to be that too. What is the path to getting it? You understand what I'm saying? And these are the things where we must, educate our people, our young children properly and give them the proper guidance and let them understand, how you do these things and so on. And Andre, I can remember near my home in Grosley, those young men were sitting across the street and talking. And I swear to God, I heard the guys talking about one of the guys who was in their midst. He's a young guy in his 20s. And they were boasting about the fact that he had six scalps already.
6 what?
Scalps.
Oh,
so when I asked my son, what does that mean? He told me 6 people he has killed. 6 people he has killed. He is right now on the run. Okay? He's one dead. Just think about it. Now, Andre, you now, in your time, you probably, if you're a sportsman, you boast about how many matches you win, how many goals you score. Right. Or in your case, I suspect how many girlfriends you have, or, that kind of thing. But that's their world. And it has to be broken. It has to be broken. Now, again, I'm not saying government here. The society, civil society has a big role to play. The family, the church, the schools. We have a big role to play because you see what I see happening? Social workers. I'm a social worker. I go to Andre and Jeshron. Y'all have no problems. Y'all already good, Go to the ghettos. Go to the isolated youth. Go to the guys who are, who do not belong. That's what we have to do. The churches have to reach out. The clubs, the organizations. So to break that cycle will be difficult because what Jeshron was saying to us, there's money involved. He referred to it as an economy. You had the term economy. So, Andre, you can't just come and talk to me when you have nothing to give me. You understand? What are you talking to me about? The leader gives me a little scooter right away. I'm mobile and all that kind of thing. My gun, you know what I'm saying? Who you're talking to, So, it takes a bit. We have to stop and assess the situation before it gets totally out of hand. Now, when you tell me, Sheshwan, you made a statement there. Guns are coming in through our borders, and it's easy to get a gun. You said that.
Yes, it is.
Andre, it's easy to get a gun. That's an illegal thing, Now, you're going to tell me you have a canine unit that assists you, okay, in stemming the flow of guns into this country. You disband it. The scanners that will detect those guns, they've gone bad. Your border control program that the UWP started, you abandon it. The CCTV cameras and so on, all of those things, because you see, first thing they tell you, trying to divert from the real issue. Every country has crime. No government can prevent crime. Can create a situation of zero crime. Nobody's asking for that. But the rampant violence that is taking, there was always crime in St. Lucia, Andre. But you know what you used to do in your youth? You know what your parents used to do? Wherever you live in, they're going to Castries, they don't even close their house. They were not living in fear. You didn't have transport, you walk to a dance in Timbuktu and walk back at 2 o'clock in the morning. There was no fear. Now 2 o'clock in the day, you're afraid to go to Castries. You know.
And it's interesting because I travel across the island, okay? And there are certain places, certain communities I would be attending certain events. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning that I'm leaving, 2 o'clock, and I'm walking areas that sort of dark.
No, yeah.
And I don't feel any fear. I'm talking about outside of Castries.
Right.
Okay. So we have a problem. Yeah, exactly. And I know communities where families, as you said a while ago, still leave their homes open. I know that for a fact. So how come we don't really have those issues, in our districts? Why the city?
Well, those people are probably not exposed to the vagaries that take place in the city.
And we have it in a few of the out districts, as well.
But as development takes place, Andre, a lot of that infiltrates.
I get you.
But I want to really hear from Jeshwan, Andre. Jeshwan, okay, you have been a youth leader. Maybe Andre and I might think the answer is going to church, and that's the last thing we want to tell our youth. They're not interested. They're not. What, you as a young man, what is it that can be done to rechannel those young people? What do you think? I mean, you're a member of a party. Quite apart from what you think as a leader, a youth leader in other organizations, what is your party going to do? I mean, I know you're not a candidate, but you're a youth leader in your party, and I'm asking you that question.
Let me just add a little more. Let me add a little more. In terms of those young men who are already involved, do you think that they still can be reached? That something can be done?
Before we even ask the question, yes. I agree with you, Andre.
I think some of them can be reached, but it's good to have dialect and conversation with a lot of those young men, which is what I try to do from time to time, just to understand the perspective. And let me just share some of that perspective with you. When a 14-year-old says to me that 5 years ago these guys took out his uncle, his brother, his friend, his neighbor, and he's waiting for when he gets a little older to avenge them, you realize that the issue is a lot deeper than, meet the eye of the
That's becoming a culture now, Andre.
Right? It's becoming very serious. When you speak to another young man and he says to you that if I go to kill someone, two things: either they don't catch me, they never figure out it's me, or if they do, the evidence disappears, or even if the evidence doesn't disappear, a witness disappears, I still get off. So that's some of the things that you hear some of the young men are actually saying. So our ability to solve a lot of these crimes, providing the resources to the police force to be able to solve a lot of these crimes, is something that I think that's very important that we have to look into as a party.
But you see, what's dangerous about this thing is the amount of money involved in it.
As well.
So people can be bought, when I say people can be bought, I'm talking about politicians, I'm talking about police officers, I'm talking about the judiciary, I'm talking about, because it is human beings that are in those things. Now, if I, as a police officer, I'm earning, let's say, $2,000 a month, right, which can barely meet my commitments, and you've given me $10,000, not to do anything, just to look the other way, the temptation is high.
It's there, yeah.
So these are the things, and so you need men of high moral standing, and values to be in your police force. I will say too, you need to pay them a little better, Andre, and so on. And I agreed when the salary of politicians went up. I agreed that they should be well paid because they have a big responsibility.
Yeah.
They handle a lot of our money now. I mean, I always say, Andre, it's a crime to give me, a hungry man, to handle food, and don't expect me to take a bite, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying it's right, but the temptation is greater when you're desperate, when you're in need. So I agree for him to think, but along with the proper compensation should be harsh penalties if you still, indulge in crookedness. Because at the end of the day, there are people who have nothing but they won't steal, You understand? So it's your values, it's your character, it's those things. So even if you pay them well, some will still do it. So you know,
Yes.
you place high penalties on corruption and wrongdoings, and to ensure that you discourage it at all levels.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
When you start from the top, Andre, people from the bottom will take heed, and they will realize that the country is serious.
Yeah,
about
because if
it.
the message we send in is that criminals can get into parliament, I mean, we're already starting on the wrong foot.
Yeah, and a lot of criminals live better than us. You understand what I'm saying?
And you also made another good point, the fact that they are not caught.
Right.
You said the young person that you
A lot
spoke
of them
with.
feel that
Yeah.
the chances of them getting caught is slim to none.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a feeling on the ground when you speak to the average young person, even young persons who are not involved in crimes. You know, that is the perspective. These guys will probably not get caught if they do something.
So that happens when, for example, no witnesses, or maybe the police ability to siphon crime scenes and so on.
First of all, Andre, if I know you saw, I don't have to give you the look, and if you open your mouth, you might become a victim.
Mhm.
Now, the first thing you're going to ask yourself, well, how much protection do I have?
Right.
Who's going to protect me? That's the first question you have to
I have
ask
a
yourself.
family to feed.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, so, all right, and I understand that.
Mhm.
So in the absence of witnesses willing to come forward, what is left then? What's
Technology, Andre. We have to use technology.
left? Explain.
The cameras will tell you. Even if I see and I don't speak, the cameras will tell you. Because let me tell you.
But don't we have
the
these cameras all over the place?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the gun
You don't
violence.
have enough.
But Andre, the gun violence, where is it taking place? Not on the bed somewhere, in the streets of Castries.
And most of
I
the
see-
city, most of it.
I see pictures of people on the streets, in the drain, in broad daylight, in the Castries, in the streets. So if you have cameras all over the place, and most of those guys, they use a vehicle to get away. I was told the fellas in Castries didn't have mask Saturday.
Yes.
Because what happens tells
Yeah.
you how people feel. If I think on a Saturday where Castries should be buzzing with people coming to shop, I think that I can go up to a guy opposite KFC, which would be a place with a lot of people, and execute a killing broad daylight, midday on a Saturday. It tells me that when I analyze
Without
the
a mask,
situation
Jason.
without a mask, I'm not afraid of anything.
And you haven't spoken about. Remember, there's a similar situation on Jeremy Street.
On Jeremy
that
Street,
day.
yes.
So we haven't even spoken about
that
it.
day,
Yeah. And
Right,
from what
in the
we
morning,
heard, the
right.
person
Yeah.
come out of a vehicle, no mask.
No mask, nothing, yeah. So I'm saying, Andre, you can understand why people are afraid to come forward to say, but let's use the technology. Technology is at our disposal. You understand what I'm saying? So we do that, and to stem it from the bud, prevent the guns from coming in. Well, when I say prevent, to the extent that we can, minimize the number of guns that come in. Don't make it easy for the fellas to get guns and even ammunition. Andre, once I was in View Fort, I'm just like, brr, 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 asking the fellas, what's that? Fellas just find it as if they're walking. No, the fellas just, being flashy, just trying out their guns and so on. That's ammunition they're expending. Now, if it was rare, if it was difficult to get, they wouldn't waste it.
Right, that's
in
what
the
I'm
gun.
You
saying.
understand
So
what I'm
you
saying?
hear them saying that the leaders flood the market with ammunition to bring down the price. So when you hear a young person who's involved in that say that kind of thing, you realize it's an economy. They're thinking of it from a financial, from an economic perspective as well. And that's very, very.
But Andre,
insane.
don't think the guys who are involved are stupid, they'll come to you and be nice to you and everything. And if you're not checking yourself, when Jeshron, who's out there among them, come and tell you, then you won't believe him, Because this guy, there are some very nice guys and they do some very good things.
in the community
Help
as well.
older people, do
Send
all that kind
children
of
to
thing.
school, they do a lot of good things
They
in the
camouflage
communities
what
as
they're
well.
doing. And so we as a society have to be alert and mindful about those things, because they are destroying our country.
And can you imagine if you're a recipient of that goodness?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd be
So
hard
you
pressed
have a
to.
community
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
10 to 12 single mothers, and this gentleman is sending their children to school, and the police come for information. I mean, they're not
Andre,
willing
even
to,
if
to
you
give
know,
up the
even if you
information.
see, even
Right.
if you think you'll give up that person, and that's what makes it difficult and so on. So we have to
Remember Duddas Coke?
That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what he used to do.
Yeah, yeah.
When Duddas Coke was caught, you know who was driving Duddas Coke? A pastor.
Imagine that.
A pastor was driving him.
So the church probably wanted a new pulpit. He probably just built that for them. That
Yeah,
kind
who
of thing.
knows what he did for
Yeah.
the church back
Yeah.
then, and he was being protected by this church individual.
I don't know how, we're able to do something of the sort here in St. Lucia, but from my research, I have seen a few countries who have a paid gun amnesty, where they actually purchase guns, illegal firearms, in an amnesty program.
I think we have tried that here.
From criminals.
We have tried that here. But guess what? I mean, that I don't know how serious that was, and it was given to me. It was given to me as a joke, guys. It was said that the fellas, all the old guns they have that they're working properly, they brought it, took the money and go and buy good guns. But I mean, we can try all of those things.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of solutions, I mean, you probably mentioned some. I mean, in terms of solutions, that's what I think is important right now. And we have to look to you all, the young guys, to help us in finding solutions, because you all are the ones who are attracted to that life and who maybe face the problems that cause you all to go to that life.
I mean, and Spider too, I mean, you have many young women who are attracted to young men in that lifestyle as well. So that is a secondary perspective to the situation.
So what's the point now? What point are you making there now?
If I'm a young man, 15, 16, growing up, and I realize that the older girls are attracted to these guys, many of them, and these guys are able to sweet talk and get through with many of the girls from being in that life, it makes it a lot more attractive to me as a young man.
Now, Andre, that's important.
That's an interesting dimension.
That's important. As a young man, teens, early 20s, your primary interest in things girls.
Yeah.
And if you think that life can get you girls, and you have to ask yourself, why are our girls attracted to those kind of guys?
That's a good question. As a young person, what do you think?
I think there's a lot at play. I mean, the music for sure really has an influence on the young people. I had the distinct opportunity. I was speaking to a young man. He's deceased now, and he was known to be the driver for a lot of those incidents. So he would be the one riding the bike or driving the car heading to those incidents. And he said to help him cope and to put him in the mood and in the mindset to execute what needs to be done, even if he's not the actual person doing it, there's certain music that he would play on the way, and the persons in the vehicle with him would request certain songs to rile themselves up and to prepare themselves for what they're about to do. So when you speak to those young men and you hear those kinds of things, you realize why countries like China really take strong approaches to ban certain music and certain content on their social media for their population and that sort of thing. So it really goes deep. There's so much that we're not taking into consideration, I think, when we're looking at this issue.
But what makes a young lady attracted to this sort of thing, especially knowing that this person could probably be killed? What?
Before you answer, Jeshran, one of our listeners are complaining. You need to speak into your mic a little more. They're not hearing you.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Yes. So I was saying, what attracts a young lady to this kind of individual?
Well, I think it's flashy. It's flashy. They like to see it.
What's flashy?
Jewelry. There's nice clothes. There's money. There's fast life. They don't, it's attractive to them.
When you say money, I mean, do these guys have thousands of dollars in their pockets and so on?
Of course they do.
Really?
Of course they do.
But can I say, Jeshran?
In addition to the gun.
Well, Andre and Jeshran, it is known to that younger people are naturally rebellious, and they are attracted to the things that go against the grain.
Right.
So I think that may be part of it as well. But I don't know. When you talk about, young people, the things that they look after, you talk about girls, you talk about jewelry, you talk about the flashy lifestyle. But as a young man, don't you think of, okay, I want to have a girlfriend and a house first to start a family and so on? I mean, do you think that those guys are thinking of what they're doing as a means to achieving that?
Yeah, I think they actually want to achieve certain things. They want to have a legitimate business. They want to have a home, they want to have vehicles, settle and be comfortable. I think a lot of them, indeed, they want to achieve that.
Now, interestingly, I answer interestingly, if you go the route of what we're talking about here to achieve that, most of those guys die very early.
Yeah.
They die very young. I asked one of the guys a question.
You said, I'm not following. You said,
okay, if you're working as a carpenter, Andre, you may live to retire. If you're a gangster doing those things for a living, chances are, while you're killing people, chances are you'll get killed.
Okay.
I was said to one of the guys, because that life is not going to pay you, not going to live long. He say, the other guys won't live long. They never see themselves as a victim.
I see.
You understand? And that's the thing. He don't think of him being killed. He's going to shoot someone, and that's the mindset. It won't happen to me, that kind of thing. But in terms of programs for young people, Jeshran, what do you think can be done? I mean, are young people interested in, for example, we talk about housing and so on, but when you talk about housing, there's people like Andrea and I, you had discussing how we want to buy a house. I don't know if you all guys are.
No, you have young people, young professionals who are interested in having access to affordable housing solutions that are maybe government supported and that kind of thing. You hear young persons, who say, how can I own a piece of St. Lucia? You still have young people who want to own their home. They're questioning, can the government provide high-rise apartment buildings where I can come in and buy an apartment from the complex? And many of them are still very interested in being able to leave the nest, leave home, get their own space, feel that level of independence that comes with getting older. So yes, you have young persons who are interested and they have been complaining that they don't think that enough has been done by this administration to provide affordable housing solutions for young people, for sure.
Yeah, when I was growing up, Jeshran, there was a word called conscience. Do you all have that?
Young people?
Yeah,
some of us do, yes.
I mean, the kind of killings I see taking place, Andre, I mean, like I always say, Andre, you throw a stone and kill a neighbor's dog or something, so you can't sleep.
Yes. Right. Yes.
But this was boast about how many people they kill, I mean, how did we get there? What do you think is responsible for that?
Again, it's street credit. So
okay,
and again it shows.
You had a lingo, Andre. Street cred. Okay, yeah. Go
ahead. Again, it shows how they think that I will not be caught if I can do this crime openly in broad daylight, and then afterwards go and boast and say I did it.
So they actually boast about those things.
Of course, the guys talk about the stripes, how many scalps, and how many numbers they have, and that sort of thing. You hate. It's there, So it gives you rank. It gives you respect amongst the boys, amongst the guys, amongst the peers.
Are these young people still living at their homes, their parents' home?
Some of them, I think, still.
Andre, these are the good boys, they get shot and so on. The good boys, because at their homes they are good boys. And that's what people don't realize. That's what their mother know, a good boy. Yeah. But when they leave, the mother don't know that they carry guns and things.
Somebody else.
But you use a word, Sheshwan, I want to
so just a quick thing. So how could parents not be aware of what these boys are doing? How could they not be aware?
But again, it goes back to the point that you and Spider presented earlier. The level of supervision that was probably around when two of you were younger, is no longer a thing. Children are often left to fend for themselves, probably from a very early age. You might see a 9-year-old taking a 5 and a 3-year-old home after school, and that sort of thing, because of the faster life that we live right now and how people work and that sort of thing. So that creates the issue, the foundation for that issue.
I see.
But Andre, Sheshwan used the word respect. I hear that word a lot among young people. And Sheshwan, the kind of things I see happening because a man disrespect me.
Right.
I mean, talk to me about that new phenomenon, about respect. I mean, you talk to a guy's girlfriend, you disrespect him. That kind of thing. Talk to me about that.
And I wonder if they really know the meaning of disrespect.
Yeah,
Well, like with everything else, perspectives change. And so what qualifies as respect is very shallow these days, and the slightest thing can be deemed as disrespect.
And you're going to die for that.
That is how a lot of them feel and think, yes. And it's interesting that, you know, many of them are really prepared to do whatever it takes to acquire this respect. And for me too, it's how quickly, you know, people go from 0 to 100 when it comes to anger. There is no in between. There's no let's talk about it, and you know, people just ready to do the most for the slightest reasons.
And don't forget asking for forgiveness as well.
Forgiveness.
In other words, I just disrespected you, right? And if as Spider was saying a while ago, my conscience says to me, hey, I shouldn't have done that. To go back right away and say, hey, sorry, I said that to you.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that happens very often anymore. I don't think so. You know, not
so in the absence of the forgive me for that, I'm sorry, then you have the other person who feels disrespected.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of what it is.
You know, but where are the girls in all of this? I know you said that the girls are attracted to those guys, but are they involved in the criminal activity themselves?
Well, what we've been seeing, Spider, is the guys are actually using the girls to set up other guys. So I have an issue with Spider, and I've been looking for him, and I cannot find him, but I know he likes Trisha. But Trisha is loyal to me because of X, Y, and Z. Either send her children to school or whatever. So I will ask Trisha to tell Spider to come and check her by the church.
Wow.
And I'll be waiting nearby, and when Spider comes out, because he likes Trisha, then Spider is dealt with. So we have seen many situations where they have started using the young women to lure the young men into traps.
Do you think that the young women are unaware of what's going on?
They're aware. They're aware. They're
Meaning the motive of
yes,
the, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. From the information we're getting here. They are aware.
Yeah, but I mean, you as a young man, what can you say to those young people out there?
See?
Because as we're winding down, I don't know if my next guest is here yet. Well, while we await him, I just want to know, what can you say? Because see, we may be totally off base because we're not as connected. What can you say to those young people so that they can take a different view of life and to consider a different direction?
I don't know what you can say to them, to be honest. But I don't know what can be said. From what I've been seeing, a lot of the young people involved check themselves at a certain age. As they get older and they realize this doesn't make sense, I have lost so many friends, it's not getting me anywhere. I make a money in January, but by June it's not stable, it's not steady. So I think what I have seen is with age, a lot of them change. The other thing that happens is some of them, after having kids, they start to look at it a little differently as well. I have a little girl, I have to be there for her, I have to take care of her, and and that sort of thing. So I think there's situations, and age is what naturally allows a lot of them to cool out. I personally don't think that there's anything that can be said to the average 25-year-old who is involved in a gang, who is making a lot of money. All the girls like him. He has his street credit. He has his respect because he's done X, Y, and Z. In that moment, in that fast life, I don't think there's anything that really can be said to a young man.
And especially if you're not offering them a viable alternative.
Right. Which, whilst I was on Team Show some months ago, I said that I think what we have to do is to try to discourage the younger ones from going in than really trying to get those who are in to come out. I think it's more reliable. It's a better approach if we tackle the primary school, secondary school, early secondary school kids and really try to reach them, but we have to have programs to engage them, things that they are interested in, where they can use up their time in spaces where maybe even get compensated for their time in those spaces, to really pull them off from the attraction of the streets.
So the other important element which we touched on over and over again, the issue of the parents being away. Now, as a government or government in waiting, right? How can you address this aspect? Because people have to be out there working. They have to. It's expected of you. If you don't work, you will not eat. So you have to be out there working, especially you have single mothers, right? That sort of situation. So what can a government do now to assist those people that they can have more time to spend with their children?
Yeah, that would be a ticklish one. I think it might actually need to be further modification to the after-school programs that our government would have started between 2016 and 2021 to keep those young people, those youth engaged on behalf of the parents, until certain hours, until certain times, rather than, I don't know, fixing the parents' work schedule. I don't know how possible something like that would be.
Mr. Munton,
like he mentioned the after-school program. I think the after-school program plays a role, but you have to expand it to include clubs, because clubs are normally...
what I'm asking is the parents now being in a position, having the time now to be around the home to ensure that they're there for the children, because that's I think from what you're saying, over and over, you kept saying so.
Yeah, but you see, the parents have to work, Andre. They have to provide.
So how can a government assist now to change the system in such a way that parents are not working how many long hours, 11 hours a day, and this sort of thing?
We have to build our economy so that we have an economy where people are not only engaged in menial jobs, that our minimum wage gets to a certain level, so that I do not have to do 2 jobs just to make ends meet. That kind of thing. And at the same time, too, we have to train our people in the modern economy, where many people can stay at home and work for some company in Timbuktu and earn their currency, euro, US, whatever it is, and provide for their families while they are at home. We have to also, Andre, encourage. You see, some of the things we have abandoned, Andre, worked, We have abandoned it, and we are paying the price. What is wrong with the extended family? Andre, from the time you were 20, you want to go on your own, you want to go to your home, you want to do all the kind of things like that. Whereas before, there was Andre, there was his mother, there was his grandmother, there was an aunt, there was a
sisters
whole network. And so, that is something we probably need to revisit, the role of the extended family. And even if everyone does not live in the same house, but within the same area, where, you can, that one can cast an eye over the children, that one can, that kind of thing. So if you're working nighttime, working day, we can work it out. And so on. All those little things we can do. The clubs have to play a role, and I like clubs because it's interest groups. If I'm interested in, I'm not a sports person, but I'm interested in music. There can be a choir, there can be, some theater arts group, some kind of thing. So when they are occupied with those things, their minds are more creatively and productively engaged. They're not going to have time to think of those negative things, And very often young people want, apart from a sense of belonging, they want a recognition too. Because a lot of rebellious young people just want to be seen. They want to, I'm there, acknowledge me. So if they have to be a bad boy for them to get that recognition, they will do it,
And you make a good point, Spider. If you meet with a group of young men who are members of a gang, and you ask them, if you were to come out of gang life, what would you be interested in doing? And you realize that a lot of the responses would be things that are within the arts industry, whether it be visual artists, music artists, dance, and that sort of thing. And this is a section of youth development in the country that has not been given a lot of attention.
But what can we do, Joshua, to develop it and make it more accessible to them?
Right, so we have to provide more opportunities for young people to be able to function in those areas.
Yeah.
Yes, we have your other guest coming in.
Okay. Yeah.
Can he come in right now, or do you want?
We have space for him, Andrew?
Okay, just give us
Just
5 minutes.
About
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
We'll bring you on. Yeah.
Right. What is being done to execute a talent search for young music artists around the island? How many recording studios are available around the island? Can the average young man who has left school, whose mother is unemployed, afford to go to one of the regular recording studios and test his skill, find his talent? You know, how can he do that? Is there opportunities? Are there programs that support that kind of talent search, talent development? For him, the average young man here who can paint, who can draw, do we have contact with maybe companies abroad, overseas, or persons who can help harness those talents and allow those young persons to make a living through those skills, through those talents that they have? And if you speak to a lot of those young men, their talent is within that area, within the arts.
And I think you said make a living. I think comfortable is important.
Comfortable as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because when they have to now assess the situation, okay, if I leave this to come to what you are suggesting, how am I going to survive?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Currently,
important.
what I'm doing is taking care of my
Right,
needs.
My needs, right.
Yeah. But I want to ask you, you're from Grosile. There's a human resource center in Grosile that was supposed to be many things. There's supposed to be a theater there. There's supposed to be a music lab there.
Lab there as well.
And there's supposed to be a technology center upstairs with all the computers and everything.
Right.
I mean, it is temporarily housing the police, which should be a thing of the past soon when the headquarters is completed. But your party, the United Workers' Party, get into office, what would be done? What would you all do? Take for example, in the case of Grosile, you already have the theater existing. You already have the music lab set up and so on. I mean, when nothing is happening as far as these things are concerned, you know, how do we channel the young people to do
Right.
those
So some of the local producers who live in Grosile, I think we should hire one or two of them, get them to have that music lab functional, and you put out a call to the young persons throughout the constituency or even further to let them know that, you know, listen, this space is available. You can go in. There's somebody to help you craft lyrics. There is somebody to help you with your vocals when you go into that lab. So you hire
And even the
persons that
engineering
can
part of it.
engineering part of it. You know, you have the persons, the resource persons there, and those young persons. I am done with school. I finished SAFA. I really think I have a talent. I have what it takes to make it in the music industry. I can go to that lab Monday morning and there will be persons there ready to assist me, to help me craft and develop that talent. A song can come out, it can play. Let's see what kind of traction, you know, happens with it. We send it out to the radio stations, you know, and that sort of thing. And you develop the talent of those young people in Grosile, both males and females. We have a lot of young women these days as well who are becoming singers in soca, in calypso, in dancehall, in Denry segment, you know. And we have so many genres that our culture supports, our culture loves, and is part of us here in St. Lucia. So I think the opportunity, the diversity for what you can sing, you know, is there, is present. And there's a strong support fan base to give you that push that you need. And then now you have the resources to help those young persons go regional and international, and you really push your artists. You know, we have some young people here in St. Lucia who for years have been singing, has been showcasing their talent, and you know, there's not a system to help give them that boost that's required. And I think, you know, it's something really needs to be done in that regard.
Yeah. So, Jeshwan, I mean, there's a lot more we can discuss about the youth. I'll certainly bring you back at some point for us to talk further, especially closer to the elections.
Right.
We want to hear what exactly your specific plans from your party for youth.
Youth, right.
But I have another guest that I want to bring on, one of your colleagues.
Yeah.
He's one of the endorsed candidates for the United Workers' Party. So if you have any final words that you want to leave with the young people before before you depart, I am giving you the opportunity to do so now.
Right, so for sure I want to start off by saying that Tommy is actually a colleague of mine. He was a year ahead of me at St. Mary's College, and I'm very excited.
In case you don't realize it, we're on a youth agenda today.
Right. Very happy and excited to see him, become a candidate. I know he has a lot to offer to his constituency, and I want to encourage especially the young people in his constituency to have a sit down with him, meet with him, hear from him some of the ideas that he has. He just like me, he's someone who thinks outside of the box, and this is what we need moving forward to be able to take our country to the next step. I just want to encourage a lot of our young people who might be listening to play their part in this fight against crime that is required right now nationally. All hands have to be on deck,
including the parents.
Everybody has to participate for us to make a difference. The government as well has a critical role to play to ensure that the resources, the programs, the initiatives, and everything is laid out and prepared and made available for us to be able to fight crime in the way that's required right now here in St. Lucia. Our main breadwinner is tourism. We cannot continue to allow this situation to affect our image regionally and internationally. It is going to have, tremendous and adverse ripple effects in terms of our country's economy down the line if we're not able to adequately address those situations and address the crime. If you look at some of the countries who's allowed their crime to go rampant over the last 2 decades, and you compare that to their tourism numbers, then you can have an idea of the direction that is possible for us. So I really think we need to seriously take a look at the situation.
And finally, Sheshwan, you mentioned Tommy, but I know you'll have a few, 1 or 2 other young people in your lineup of candidates.
Right. We have Rush Clark, and we have Elisha Norbert and so on.
Just to end, what difference do you think bringing in those young people to be part of governance and leadership in this country, what difference do you think that will make for young people?
Yeah, I think it'll make a huge difference, and I'll tell you why. In terms of change of thought between 1990 and say 2010, the change of thought of young people the rate of change was a lot slower than what you would get between 2010 and now 2025. So maybe the way young people think and the way it changes, the amount of change that happens now in 2 years might have taken 10 years to happen back in that time frame. So having younger candidates who can more readily relate to that change and bridge the gap between our senior persons who are expected to get into parliament and the youth of this country, I think it's really imperative that we have them on board and they're able to contribute to decisions and really bring in that youth perspective and allow for catering to the specific formulation of programs and activities that cater to the young people and how they think and their perspective. So I think that's very important.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you for
no problem.
Being with us for this first segment of the program.
Right.
And we wish you luck. And we certainly hope that we will see some of the young faces in government come the next general election.
I don't think we got his full name.
Jeshurun Andrew is the full name.
Okay, Jeshurun. How do you spell that?
Jeshurun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's biblical, yes.
Okay.
All right.
You did a great job.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
okay,
all right.
Jeshurun, talk to you later. Yeah, as you go down, ask Tommy to come and take over from where you left off. And Andre, I think it's good to have the perspective of the young people. Even their language is different to ours.
Exactly.
And I hear them sometimes and I have to keep asking my daughter, for example, what is it you're talking about?
What's a scalp?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to welcome Tommy immediately because, we don't have much time left and I want to get into some current matters with him. So while he's settling in, I just want to say that over the last few days, we were talking about incidents of the last few days we dealt with the crime. But on Tuesday, there was a sitting of Parliament, and one of the matters that was dealt with was the issue of GPH. And we had a little should I say, tussle between the current Minister of Investment and Deputy Prime Minister, Dr. Ernest Hille, and the leader of the opposition. The leader of the opposition divulged some information that was a secret to us. We didn't know about it, despite how long this GPH thing has been going on. Of course, Dr. Ernest Hille denied and challenged the leader of the opposition, who was able to produce documentary evidence of what he was saying. That is, that in fact, the lands near the port were leased to GPH for 30 years for $1. And that was done by the same Labour Party who made a song and dance about the DSH deal where land was leased for $1. Of course, you have the unmannerly, vile Richard Frederick, who never keeps his nose out of anything, who wanted to show off and like he's such a big shot lawyer, and he stood up and tried to, educate Alan Chasney about legal matters, because Alan Chasney said that there was an emphatic lease on the property for 30 years. Jump up to let Chasney know that an emphatic lease cannot be for 30 years, it's only for 99 years. And just only to find out, of course, Andre, an emphatic lease can be anything from 18 years to 99 years. So, yes, Richard, once again, you are wrong, and so you're one of the wrongs that must be right, that must be put right. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, I want to welcome my guests. Tommy, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
I got the message, so welcome to Meet the Government in Waiting. He's the guy Andrew keeps telling me, if I want him to come on this program, it's not Meet the Opposition, it's Meet the Government in Waiting. So he's here now on Meet the Government in Waiting.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Andre.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our endorsed candidate for the constituency of Castries South. What I'm talking about there, sir, does include Castries South.
Very much so.
And I'm going to jump right into it. I'm not even giving you an opportunity for your introductory remark. I'm too anxious to hear what you have to say. Speak to us about this whole situation with GPH as it affects what I call your constituents.
Thank you very much, Spider, and thank you very much, Andre, for having me on Meet the Government in Waiting.
Yes.
So there were some revelations in the House of Parliament about the lease agreement, lease rental agreement about that pertains to GPH and our ports. I think, honestly, Andre and Spider, this is, for me...
Can you come a little closer to the mic, Mike?
I think for
are
me,
complaining. Yeah.
For me, this is the least of the issue for me here. What I have done is I've gone in and done a comparative analysis of GPH concession agreements with Bahamas, Antigua, and St. Lucia to look at how do they stack up with what we as a country would have signed on to. So in the case of Bahamas, which has a concession agreement with GPH, it's a joint venture and it's entitled Nassau Cruise Port, and GPH has 49% ownership in there, and the Bahamas Investment Fund has 49% in the shareholding in this company, and Yes Foundation, it's a local foundation, has 2% investment in this. So it's not owned wholly by GPH Port Holdings. In that case, it's a 25-year port operations and a lease agreement of one port, Prince George Wharfs, which was signed in 2019. The investment commitments are around $250 million US, and it spans a host of investments from expanding of berths.
Could you repeat that figure for me, please?
US 250 million.
Okay.
But the important thing is to ensure that this project benefits constituents, Bahamians. The government ensured that ordinary Bahamians can invest in the project. And so you had the Bahamian Investment Fund allowing local citizens to invest a minimum of US 1,000 as equity into the project. And they can also invest US 50,000, I think a maximum of 50,000 in bonds. So you have local persons benefiting from the investment. So in the case of St. Lucia, you would have, let's say, the credit unions, where we know are awash with cash. We have the CSAs and all of these teachers' credit unions who could have benefited The question is, why didn't we go with this sort of arrangement? It eludes me. I'm not sure why. And it's not like it happened after us. There was a clear playbook. So we could have said, okay, let's look at what Bahamas did. If you look at Antigua, again, it's a 30-year concession arrangement. And in that case, GPH has 100% holding in the company. The investment is a US $21 million, that they will retire $21 million of existing debt that the Antigua Port Authority has on its books. And they're going to invest $30 million to
1313?
30 in one particular investment. That's the to allow it to be able to accommodate mega yachts and that sort of Oasis class yachts and that sort of thing. The interesting thing in the case of Antigua is that there is a revenue sharing arrangement where there is a variable fee base on the passenger volume. That is a fundamental difference we see in here. GPH, in our case, we have no latitude to determine on the volume. So let's assume we see a sudden shoot in the volume of crews that are coming in. GPH could be cashing in tremendously in our particular case. In the case of Antigua, they have put in a sort of a clause to say that you can. And in the St. Lucia case, it's the worst of the three. We know it's a 30-year concession agreement, which there's also 10 years additional if they want to go beyond that. The investment, and the interesting thing, Andre, is we don't have access to that in the agreement. You could get Antigua's agreement, you could get Bahamas agreement, but you can't get St. Lucia's agreement. And it speaks volumes about our government on transparency, right? It's a
how could that be? That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
no access to the agreement.
You don't have access to the agreement. I mean, that's the.
But part of the deal was described as a secret agreement.
Well, yeah,
a secret deal.
And
they went as far as saying that.
Yeah, and that seems to be the modus operandi of this government. That they go in and they sign in these deals, and we don't know. We don't have and we know the devil is in the detail. We don't have information on these deals. But importantly, I think the financing arrangement, they have come in, and GPH has not brought in $1 single for indirect investment to St. Lucia. They've gone to our local banking institutions and were able to get, I think, I'm hearing $40 million US from a bank, and crowding out private credit from small businesses that would want you. So,
can I interrupt you, please? So, and what did they use as collateral for that?
I don't have the agreement. I can't say. I would have to assume that it's to some extent our very port. And that's why I think we need to see the balance sheet of SASPA to see what, for me in particular, the ports, the land, equipment and property. I think someone told me that it was in the order of 260 something million at one point. So that's the actual value. And I must say, Andre, our ports symbolize our sovereignty as a small, open economy. And in this particular GPH case, Andre, Port Castries, Port Soufrière is under within the control of a foreign entity, and Port Vieux-Fort likewise. They have a say in how and when we develop Port Vieux-Fort. This, to my mind, is a significant erosion of our sovereignty as a country, Andre. And so for me, I mean, my niece is 3 years. When we get out of this deal, she will be 33. And if we extend it, she'll be 43. An entire generation would have to leave without having access. And you have no policy room. And one must understand, GPH was listed on the London Stock Exchange. As late as in 2024, it became delisted a year after signing the agreement with St. Lucia. And what does that mean? When a company becomes delisted, you don't know who are the shareholders. You don't know. They are not subject to robust requirements to disclose their financials and so on. And so this is a company that is owned by a Turkish company, and it has which has several other subsidiaries. One that is GPH Port Holding that is registered in the UK, and then it has subsidiaries in the Caribbean. And so, for me, fundamentally, we need to go in and ask some very deep questions, Andre. why did we need GPH in the first place? It doesn't own cruises. From my understanding, part of the reason why it was delisted is because it's having financial issues. It cannot raise equity on the global market. And that's why it came to St. Lucia and went to a domestic financial institution. Now, mind you, they chastise us about carbot and using NIC resource for carbot. The National Insurance Corporation has 25% shareholdings of the Eastern Carbon Financial Holdings Company, that's Bank of St. Lucia. And you are going, and I'm certain that it's one of the biggest depositors in Bank of St. Lucia. So indirectly, GPH is accessing NIC funds to do this very, very investment. So for me, it's not about this dollar, it's even more than that. I mean, if you were to go in, I have a number of questions, that I would love for the government to answer, But what is certain is that St. Lucia has gotten the worst deal of these three countries. Absolute worst deal of these three countries. And we need to bring to bear and to shine some light on this issue. The question I want to ask is, so why is it that we couldn't have, this is perhaps the largest and most strategic asset of our state, your ports of entry, Bahamas, Antigua, you could get the deals, we can't get, So for me, everything that I'm going to do here is going to be speculation. I'm going to try to get information from wherever I can get it on the internet, whatever documents, and try to understand the ramifications of that decision. So my question is, why did we need to go with GPH in the first place? SLASPAS has a long track record of investing and making capital investments in our ports. And why did we need to bring in GPH at this point?
What would be the investment of GPH, like outside of the loan, the SLASPAS loan that they're paying? What will be their investment?
Well, I suppose technical know-how. They bring in a level of technical know-how to manage ports and that sort of thing. I can't take that away from them. They have a track record of managing ports. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you should automatically go with them. If SLASPA has been here from 1983, from my understanding, that's before I was born. Mm-hmm. This has a long history of a strong institution. In my own assessment, it's probably one of the strongest state-owned enterprises in the OECS. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing here is a diminishing of that institution. If 30 years SLASPA is not. My question is, okay, if you didn't allow for ordinary investors to come in, like the credit unions and so on, why didn't SLASPA was allowed at least 10% shareholding in this company, so it has a say of what actually happens? SLASPA has been relegated to a regulator. And so after 30 years, are we going to have capacity to manage our ports when GPH leaves? Mm-hmm. Who knows? So for me, fundamentally is, and the question I've asked is, all right, they have taken on our debt, SLASPA's debt. Did SLASPA ever had any issues servicing its debt in the first place? The evidence doesn't suggest that. Right. So we could have allowed SLASPA to continue servicing its debt, and if we wanted to go with GPH, allow GPH to the $20 million investment, whatever it is, and perhaps the deal that we got there would have been a way better deal for St. Lucia. There are a lot of questions in there that we have to unpack, Andre and Spider. Mm-hmm. And this government, this has to be revisited. There's absolutely no way that St. Lucians can allow GPH. And the loan is a syndicated loan, they said, for 15 years. They're going to pay off the loan in 15 years, Andre. And they're going to have another 15 years to rack in as much profit on the backs of St. Lucians. This cannot be a government that claims to be putting people first. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
If your party wins the next election, can you change that arrangement?
Well, I'm not an attorney. I don't know the legal complications and implications of what, because we have no sight of this particular contract, this deal. But I would move heaven and hell to go back to the table, certainly, because let's assume, so we know that what actually happened was that initially the head tax was $6.50, Spider. Right. From my understanding, solid waste gets $1.50. SLASPA would get $2.50, and then the government would get $2. So if you assume with the $2.50, SLASPA is able to service its $21 million debt. Mm-hmm. and we wanted SLASPA to increase its investment, capital expenditure. The same way we increased the head tax from 650 to 1250. We could have done that, and given SLASPA perhaps an additional 250, take it up to $5. And I'm sure they could have serviced their debt and simultaneously make the capital investment in upgrading their ports and so on. And the government could have racked in an additional maybe $4 or so on. And I've said one of the ways I could have easily offset that was the 150 that we have on excise tax for fuel. We could have reduced that, and you shift the incidence of tax from the domestic onto foreign. Lots of options that we could have implemented. This is the most ill thought of contract I have seen in my life. This cannot benefit the people of St. Lucia, and St. Lucians need. The government has locked you in for 40 plus years, and is telling you that you cannot invest in a cruise port, a home port in Viewfort. A home port has so many additional benefits. It would certainly jumpstart the Viewfort economy. Barbados is doing it. Barbados is looking to invest in it. This is, by all measure, the most horrendous transaction I've seen in a long time, Andre.
Well, interesting. Again, Andre, we've seen another example of what we already saw with CIP, where information is being withheld. Everything that happening at government level is a secret. So the people are kept in the dark, and there's absolutely no accountability. But I know that you had been championing the cause of the residents in Banans Bay who had to be relocated.
Yeah.
What is the latest on that?
Spider, again, and that's part of the reason why I think GPH really, and it's not necessarily GPH, it's the government who is facilitating this. Development should never disadvantage individuals. And so, Andre, if the government identifies a piece of property that it wants to have a development done there, and Andre is there living informally, any caring government, and that's global standards, international standards, that you need to ensure that you relocate Andre in a manner that is humane. They call it displacement equity. You have to ensure that you find lands to relocate him. You don't just give him $100 and tell him, hey, you need to live. You need to factor in the cost of moving his structure, the cost of loss of income. None of that. The residents were told that they were going to get one. They were going to allocate lands for them. And again, we have this discussion where the Prime Minister has said anyone residing on Crown lands of 30 years or more, you can automatically get the land. So I've heard this. I'm not too au fait about the technical legal ramifications of that. And then they were promised they were going to improve their structure, their housing structure, and give them some cash to allocate, to take into consideration their loss of income during the move and whatever it is. Subsequent to that, the SLASPA reneged on the agreement and said you're only getting cash. And SLASPA used some mechanism where they said, okay, if you've been living there for X amount of years, they give you $1,000 per year, and then someone just comes, eyeballs your structure, says it's $200, but we'll give you $5,000. It's the most unprofessional thing I've seen in my life. And it's very clear that SLASPA does not have the technical capacity to relocate people. But the government has it. You go to the Ministry of Economic Development, you go into a classic example of this on the Millennium Highway on Ansari. A lot of persons have shops all along the road. There's a place just before you, that junction, you're going up to Vanna and this side there. There's a development happening. They clear the area and they put up. So what CDB and this is a CDB funded project for UK SIF. They said no, we have to ensure that these persons get a proper place. So they're going to remove them, but they've already set up the area. And I even think that the structures that are going to be established here are better than what they had. This is what you do. And if this was funded by any international organization, the fishers would not have been experiencing what they're experiencing it. So what we've done, we've taken legal action, and we've written to SLASPA, and he said, SLASPA, as per clause 8 of this agreement, you said they can seek legal counsel, and we've done just that. And right now, we've written this SLASPA, they have acknowledged receipt of our letter and legal representation that we provided to our 12 fishermen. And mind you, the rep has said they are not fishermen. I have access to all 12 of these fishermen and their IDs. They are fishermen recognized by the state. And so we are waiting SLASPA to bring them back to the table, but we are not going to acquiesce to anything less than providing them with lands, proper structure, and the longer SLASPA waits is the more we will demand compensation for them, because they are losing income as we speak because of the current situation. So again, it speaks to a government that is certainly not caring. It's trying hard to convince itself that it cares. This government doesn't know the first thing about caring for people. And this SLASPA deal has to be revisited. We are going to explore all our legal options to revisit it. But in this day and age, I cannot imagine someone or cabinet of ministers. And mind you, I'm reliably informed that the Ministry of Finance staff, technical staff, told them, do not go into this deal. Do not go into this deal, Andre. But the gurus in cabinet decided that they will go. The question is why?
Yeah, but I hear
Who is benefiting?
I hear you. I mean, you just said it. I've heard it before, that they were advised not to go into the deal.
Yeah.
But there must be something in the deal. What is in this deal? First, I guess what you said there doesn't, provide me with any hope that there's anything for us. But I'm still saying there must be something.
Well, the question is, who is this government putting first? If it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, my brother. It is a duck. This smells very rotten, and St. Lucians need to wake up. A government that could sign this kind of deal, and it's not like we could have leveraged. We could have done this on our own. St. Lucians have been made worse off by this deal, and so. I did some rough figures. If we were to, let's assume you went to the 1250 and you allow SLASPA, you increase SLASPAs from $2.50 to $5, the government takes in $4. Do you know what that could do in terms of revenue to government? In terms of investing in our roads, investing in our infrastructure? It's a substantial amount of resources that we have.
Not to mention, if it was left in SLASPA's care and ownership, that's our way of building capacity going forward.
Of course.
But
right now, Spider, SLASPA is clear. SLASPA is having a lot of challenges on the ports.
Yeah.
I mean, you could pass there, you see all the containers, trucks are backed up. You're hearing horror stories about how long it's going to take to. I heard that the Blue Boy recently, was sold to someone. I'm hearing that all of the forklifts that they have are rented. So a question I have, and perhaps the accountants and the technical people can guide me. This asset, which is now in the hands of GPH, how is it recorded and reflected on the balance sheet of SLASPA? Because maybe it's on there, I don't know. I mean, yes, you remove the debt, but from my understanding, last time, the value of the ports and all these assets was 260 odd million. I may be wrong. I've been trying to get the audited financial statement. The question is, how is that reflected? Because if it's not reflected on the books, then it significantly diminishes SLASPA's ability to go out there and raise capital for the non-cruise side of the business. And we know the port side of things, where you talk about freight and containerized cargo, is in desperate need of upgrade. It talks about your ease of doing business. It talks about productivity loss. You head all the time. So I need some clarity on this and what is going to happen going forward.
But the way I understand it from what you said, there's an emphyteutic lease for 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, whilst SLASPA still owns the port, but for the next 30 years, it is GPH who has the authority to that asset is actually theirs for the next 30 years. They are the ones who can mortgage it, who can,
Yeah, that's very concerning. Can GPH then take our national asset that we built over years? That's for our taxpayers' monies. My forefathers, my grandparents would have contributed to this particular strategic infrastructure, and do they have the authority to mortgage this? I mean, this is serious, and I mean, the current arrangement where GPH has been delisted, we don't know, tomorrow they could sell it to a Chinese company, they could do whatever they want to, you understand? We have literally the sovereignty of our ports is no longer in our hands, Andre, and people need to understand that. Not just one. I mean, in case of Bahamas is one. In case of Antigua is one. 2 ports, and GPH now actually has a say in how we invest in Viewfort. I mean, this in what part of the world does such a thing happen, Andre?
Yeah. But if we can just, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say on the subject.
No.
If we can move on
yes.
to another subject area. I mean, I was talking to another young man like yourself. I understand you all went to school about the same time. Shesh and Andrew.
Yeah.
You all in the same party. You all are the young Turks of the party. And it is very refreshing and heartening to see that quite a few of you young guys, Rush Clark, Elijah Norbert, and all of you guys coming in. First of all, before I ask you my question, what difference do you think it makes having a cadre of young people be part of leadership, part of governance in this country? And how does that enhance the UWP as a party in terms of equipping itself to provide the kind of leadership that will be needed?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, it certainly shows that the UWP has the ability to attract young, credible candidates on its slate. And it's not just several other young persons. In my particular case, there were other in Castro South, there were other young persons who indicated their interest. And it shows that it's a party that has internal renewal, and it's and I think a lot of young persons are attracted to the philosophy of the Labour Party. We are becoming more awakened and conscious to the contribution of the United West Party to the development of our country. And for me, that is what I'm wedded to, the development ideology of the United West Party. No one can dispute the unrivaled contribution of the Sir John and the United West Party to the development of our country. Everything that is in St. Lucia at this point, save and except a few, was the handiwork of a Sir John and his cabinet of ministers over the last over 30 years. And so, and I when you look at from 1997 onwards, all of the indicators have shown that we've regressed significantly. And I am of the view that we need a fresh cadre of young men and women to come in to the political foray who are coming for the right reasons. I think St. Lucia at one point was considered, and the giant of the OECS, Andre. Every one of the other OECS countries looked to us. We were leading on every single indicator. Now, that can't be said. So I think now St. Lucia needs to reassert itself as the giant of the OECS. We need leadership that is aspirational, leadership that is bold, and that will catapult us into the 21st century, and so that we can stick ourselves in as a formidable small island developing state in the 21st century. For the United West Party, I think broadly on the democracy side, I think you need strong political parties for a country to a democracy to function well. So you need an injection of new and fresh talent, and I welcome other young persons who want to go on the Labour Party ticket as well. What it does, it ensures that there's a robust dialogue around the issues, and hopefully the best ideas win. What is going to happen is that we are now going to give the electors information to make a decision on. Beyond the noise and the mudslinging, we are going to come and start interrogating policies, and I think St. Lucia will be better for myself and other persons in coming to the political foray, because and we're hoping that the same is going to happen. The feeling is that when you make this plunge, you have to be extremely courageous to go into politics, as if it's like you're committing a murder. I don't think so. I think if you are capable, if you are credible, and you have conviction, our political landscape should allow as many young, because what we're seeing is the young persons who enter the foray, not just young persons, whoever believe that they can serve. And what that does is that you bring more leadership to the table. What we have in St. Lucia is not just, I'm hearing people say, lack of water, lack of this, lack of it's a leadership deficit we have. Once you have good leadership, you understand, they will find solutions to these problems. The problem in our country is that we have no national consensus on anything. So we haven't decided as a country how we're going to solve crime. we there's a back and forth on it. We haven't decided. I mean, we can't even deliver on road infrastructure after 46 years of independence. I mean, how can we deliver on a state-of-the-art health sector when we can't deliver on these basic things? So I think this country needs an overhaul. And I think the United Party is ready. It has put together a slate of capable men and women under leadership of Alan Chasney to rescue this country and to take it into the 21st century. What Sir John left us, I think has been squandered. And so therefore we now need a new cadre of young men and women who will come in and roll up their sleeves, go down in the drains if you have to go into them, and do the cleaning and rebuilding this country from the ground up, Spider.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
As you mentioned, Sir John, what is your party's take on the renaming of the Millennium Highway after Julian Alfred and not Sir John? What is your party's take on that?
Well, I mean, we have named, we have the John Compton Highway, we have the John Compton Dam. We have named a few things after Sir John. And I mean, it's not everything that he's responsible for that needs to necessarily be named after him. I think Julian Alfred has made a sterling contribution already as a young person. It can be a little risky sometimes while the person's still in her prime to give all those accolades and name things after her. But I feel confident and comfortable with Julian Alfred, observing her disposition, her demeanor, and her character, that we can take that chance. And, I think what she has done for St. Lucia is remarkable. I mean, I cannot quantify it in terms of dollars and cents, but it is far-reaching, and we have a lot more to benefit from the fact that Julian Alfred is Julian Alfred, So I don't have a problem with them naming it after her, to be very honest with you. I don't.
Well, I tend to agree with Spider on it. I thought you were going to ask, what is our view of the party name in the Grocery Highway after Julian Hunt rather than
well, a section of the highway.
A section of the highway, but certainly, I think that she's made a contribution. I think it's always a worthwhile. I certainly support it, and it will encourage young persons that if you put in the hard work, if you did that delayed gratification.
Andre deliberately didn't ask you, he asked me. he knows Julian is from Cicero.
And I'm also curious, just in case there's a change of heart on this particular matter, if there's a United Workers' Party government, can they change that decision?
They can.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like
Serenity Park?
They had changed John Compton Highway at one time to St. Peter's Drive.
Oh, yeah.
They did?
They did, yeah. Labour Party. Yeah.
Wow.
But
that's
when the UWP returned,
yes.
they renamed it again.
Oh, wow.
But I have to, forgive me, it's something we don't talk about, but it's a monster that is right before us, crime.
Mm-hmm.
As a young person, I'm putting the same question I put to Shashron to you.
Mm-hmm.
Young people are predominantly the perpetrators. Young people are predominantly the victims, especially young men.
Mm-hmm.
What is the answer?
So, but this is $1 million question that I think any government is going to be confronted with. Mm-hmm. I often refer to some research that I did on 2024's 77 homicides. And, as I sort of mulled over these, I actually went in and every news article, Andre, got the names, the times, so the age and so on. And it had me thinking, Andre, the investment we make in a child, how much it costs the government from kindergarten to Form 5 and some E-level. The government invests a substantial amount of resources in that child. And when I say the government, I'm saying you, Andre. I don't know if you have kids, Andre.
Yes.
You have kids?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are grown now, I assume, right?
I have a young one.
You're trying to take them out of the game?
No. But the fact is, I don't have kids. But when I go to someone, can I buy a bottle of water if it has VAT on there? My 12.5 VAT is financing this child's kindergarten or whatever. I mean, It's a substantial amount of resources that the state, we collectively as a society, invests in this child. And then this child opts for a life of crime, and in 2 or 3 years, this child is murdered. And then I did the analysis, I think, for the 77 murders, and I looked at the years of life lost. The average age, I think, was 35. We lost as a country, if you assume that these young men were going to live up until life expectancy of 72, 2,880 years of productive years. When I actually went and looked at the future income loss, $44 million. That's just direct. Not factoring how much it costs the state to police them, to keep them at border, the judicial system. It's a substantial amount of resources that we have as a country. I always say one of the indicators of the level of insecurity of a country is the size of the non-police security force. You have guardsmen, you have all of them. If you were to do a basic analysis, there are way more security guards than police, and then you have police doing moonlighting and all that sort of thing. So the level of insecurity is really high, but we cannot. So when I walk in Fuwa Show and this, I know there's a youth bulge. There are a lot of young men just on the blocks. Now, St. Lucia is at a particular point in when you look at the demographics of its population demographics. If we do not capitalize on that period, that what they call a youth dividend, then what you're going to have is that you're going to have our country becoming top heavy, and that's going to have implications on your NIC and so on. But these very young people now, if you don't invest in them, they will then destroy your communities, So they can be a blessing. They can transform this country if you give them the right investments, you give them the right opportunities. If not, they can go into a life of crime and make our lives a living hell. And so the government is at a crucial point in our juncture as a country. We have to look. And when you look at young men between 15 and 21, do you see that window? I call it the window of despair. A lot of young men, tremendous amount of peer pressure, tremendous amount of risk factors that they have to navigate. We need to find programs between the ages of 15 and 21 to make sure our young men are able to navigate this very turbulent period in their lives. A lot of these young men, even from the school system, a lot of the young men, we see them acting up in schools, and we assume it's behavioral issues. It could be genetical, is there, as a young man, you're moving in from, a child, puberty, and, all of the hormonal stuff that's happening there. So I think we have to, it's an emergency period for us. We have to come up with policies to save our young men. We have plenty of them, 700 plus at Borderley. And a lot of them, and then the issue of substance abuse. A lot of our young men, Andre, are quiet addicts. I've seen young men around them, they smoke 5, 6, 7, 8 joints in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. They cannot do without it. Now, we have a government who legalize or decriminalize marijuana, and I had no issues with it. I also felt that the government dropped the ball. It did not provide the Substance Abuse Bureau with adequate funding to teach our young men and educate them the proper use of cannabis. We have a quiet COPD problem in our country.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, young men, people have died of COPD. And the people who have died 40, 45, they, in my assessment, started to consume cannabis maybe in their 20s. What is going to happen to the young boy who is now consuming cannabis at 16? He started at 16, 15. You are by 35. I'm certain. I'm hearing young boys already have respiratory issues. That is going to be another epidemic on our hands if we do not solve this. So it's a very, very complex issue. What we are doing in terms of crime, what police do is crime suppression. All right? And the United West Party had a very robust, you see the PM and Do team, they sat down and they prepared a very robust, data-driven strategy to reduce crime in our country. And I have the documents, and the Labour Party abandoned it. It was very, very detailed. It looked at police omnipresence, but it also looked at rehabilitation. And you looked at equity, the issue of restorative justice. We do not want these young men to come into contact with the law. The moment they come in contact with the law, it becomes difficult. You don't want to get them there. I have a young friend in Marigo. I met him while I was conversing. A young man, fit, bodybuilder and so on, but he wants to go to the UK Army. And he told me he had an encounter with the law when he was 15 or so. And he has a record. I don't know how a 15-year-old gets a record in the first place, right? But he cannot go to the UK and the UK Army and join the army because of that. And so it had me thinking, what mechanisms are in place to expunge these things? Clearly, this young man, it was a one-off situation he had. This young man now has changed his life. And I don't think he was ever, when you meet him, I don't think he has ever been a young man. It could have just been at the wrong place at the wrong time. And now he has a record that follows him forever. So we have to look at the policing system as to, because how do you integrate them? I have an experience. I will tell you. There was a young man. I was 21 at the time, or 20. I was part of my youth group, church group, and on a Friday, Andre, he came to me and said, "Tommy, he wants to go back to school." So he was going to Babono Secondary School, and he dropped out. And he dropped out because of financial issues with his parents. And then I said, "Seth, his name is Seth. Do you really want to go back to school?" He said, "Yes." So I went to the Ministry of Education, and he said, at the time, was Miss Eiffel, who was the chief education officer. This young man wanted to go back into school, and at the time she looked at me and said, she think he should go to CARE, the CARE and so on. Now CARE is a fantastic, institution, but the young man wanted to go back to school and so on. Andre, I went there repeatedly. To a point I got frustrated. I said, I was going to go to the media, but I said, before I do that, let me go to them and tell them I will go to the media, so I'm not blindsided and it doesn't worsen his chances. It so happened when I went there, that very same day, she said they had given him an opportunity to go to Marigo, but I had to sign as his guardian. I took the chance, I signed as his guardian, and I was giving him some support and so on. This young man graduated valedictorian. This young man passed his CXs, went to LM. And it had me thinking, Andre, how many more Sefs that we had on the blocks that because of financial issues, because of issues in the house, they had to drop out of school. They didn't have the mentor, the support system around them. And the system failed him. And you know what? I remembered having a discussion with the Minister of Education. I said, "Chief, I want you to do me one thing. Just go in Parliament and change the legal age where the government must mandate education." I think it was 15 at the time. Has just changed from a 5 to an 8 for me. Building a second chance in your education system that those who fall out can come back in. And so for me, I think it's a real issue of emergency, but we cannot continue to lose 60 to 70 young men every year, Andre. So for me, these are the things that keeps me up at night, Spider and Andre, and
Yeah. So based on what you're saying, I can tell that the UWP will have a very comprehensive view of the whole matter.
Yeah.
It is not just like, a one-sided thing. It's a multifaceted approach that has to be taken.
Yeah.
In terms of the economy,
Yes.
in terms of opportunities for young people, social programs, and all of that.
Yeah.
And that is happening. I spoke to Jeshran, who is a youth leader himself, and it came to our attention, Andre and I, that even the language we are out of tune with.
Yeah.
And what he told us, the guy has creds.
Yes. Yes.
Which means, he has built up credits to his name, and he has his stripes and so.
Credibility on his
so
streets,
when you don't even understand their language,
Yeah.
how could you address the issues, the problem?
Yeah.
So it is good that in the fold of the UWP we have actually young people who can relate. We have for gender issues, we have the women, and of course we have the experienced ones there as well. So I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, and I also want to add, Spider. I mean, you saw me doing this project in 4-hour show and cleaning the drains.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I heard repeatedly among our young men was stigma. The stigma of being from a disadvantaged community.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't say it often, but it weighs heavily on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we know as a society the social cost of coming from these disadvantaged communities, we need to look at this very carefully. If you look there, if you do an assessment of these communities, the average age are young persons. A lot of us not having kids, a lot of they having the kids now. And we need to think about how the community renewal, how we renew these communities. And interesting, right there, I found out, that Marcus Garvey resided right next to this very drain. A historic in 1921 when he came to St. Lucia. A gentleman by Wilberforce novel had him there, and because of the colonial people were looking to do him harm, the Foreshore residents would secretly carry him in a hammock to the Gaiety, and he would have his speeches there. And is it Gaiety or Clark? One of these, rich history, Andre.
Wow.
In right there in Foreshore. So it's important that we look at this community. We don't shun them. We have to look at the issue of housing. I mean, there's some persons come and show me their homes. We in this day and age, we cannot. The society has to take a decision that we are going to help these people. And however we come up with a formula to do that, we cannot continue to have our brothers and sisters living in these sort of conditions. And so it raises the question of local government authority in cleaning up these places. Can the Castries City Council continue to service the entire Castries Basin? And the answer is plain no. Plain no. We have to find a mechanism that keeps our communities clean. And if you're going to break the stigma, Andre, I said to the gentleman, the first thing we do, let's clean up our communities. Let's take pride in our communities. So the cost of being raised, and they tell you that. One told me, but Chief, when I apply, I don't put Foreshore, I put the Hospital Road. You understand? And that's a tremendous cost. They can be not allowed to get jobs just because there's a perception about. And these are brilliant. I met some young men there who went to St. Mary's Hess. I tell them, my next project is to get you into university. You cannot be on there languishing. You cannot be there. Absolutely not. I tell them, if I have to send you to Taiwan or China, it's far away from this. You need, and that's our human capital right there, Andre. And we cannot afford. But what I've seen is a nonchalant attitude. This drain has shown me so many things. People are saying they would never go in the drain. Our people can go in the drain and clean themselves, and we who claim to help them can't go down and help them. It tells a lot about us as a society, how we look down at our people. And so I just wanted to highlight that Spider, that there's a huge social cost, huge social cost that these people have to bear by virtue of being geographically resident in a disadvantaged community.
Unfortunately, I noticed that the time is upon us. A very interesting discussion. I wish we had more time, but there's in time to come more time that we'll have to certainly bring you back to continue those kinds of discussions. I wanted to touch on what happened over the weekend, but we can't.
Yes. I
just want to give you the next couple of minutes to just, say make your closing remarks and.
Sure. Thanks, Spider. Like you said, I'm Tommy Descat, the UW candidate for Castries South. I'm coming at a time where I think this constituency needs new leadership that genuinely cares. This constituency has been loyal to Labour Party for eons, and we've all seen the cost of loyalty. The cost of loyalty has been neglect, has been wanton disrespect in how the Labour Party has dealt with a particular constituency, and we are bringing in a new style of leadership, one that doesn't look down at you and wait for contracts and wait for resources, one that finds solutions to the problem. I'm grounded in my community. I'm a roots man, but I also bring this sort of progressive outlook. It has to be people-centered. There must be buy-in. So, Castries South, I've started the work. You've seen that I'm not about making excuses. I'm here to work, and we're going to now be unveiling our plans to bring about transformation in Castries South. I'm not about just this tokenize and handing out vouchers and that sort of thing. I want the Castries South where you can live, you can raise your children, you have the incomes that you can send your children to school, build a home and a family for your kids and your spouse, start your businesses a Castle South that doesn't just survive, but a Castle South that thrives. And I'm not running away from the big issues of housing, incomes, and infrastructure. I am tackling them head on. I will sit with you. We have a problem of unplanned settlement in Castle South. We have a problem of housing deficiencies in Castle South. We have a problem of incomes. How I'm not about, dishing out these vouchers. I'm about looking at why is the average person in Castle South incomes at that level relative to other communities. And let's tackle these head on. And that's what I'm bringing. If you want someone that's going to tackle the big issues that you face every single day, I am the one that could help you with that. And I look forward for your support in the upcoming general elections. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tommy. It was a pleasure certainly to have you.
Thank you.
On Meet the Government in Waiting. So, Andre, yes. I want to say, unfortunately, the time has moved on quickly today. I know when you're dealing with young people, everything is in the fast lane, So even time. So, Andre, I want to thank you. I want to thank our listeners. Unfortunately, we didn't have time for calls today. But keep tuning in to Meet the Government in Waiting. I like to call the program now. That, of course, at the instance of Tommy. And I think when I look at the team that the UWP has put in place, they are, in fact, the government in waiting. I want to ask you to join us on Sunday, where we'll have our Sunday Live in Soufre. Yeah. And join me on Monday, where I will have a very special guest on Like It Is. But in the meantime, stay tuned to the United Workers' Party, where you hear the truth, where we shed light on the matters that are of interest and concern to you, St. Lucians, and we provide you with a better way and the right direction. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day, and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Spiderman Toot, also Mr. Tommy Descat.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to and viewing Meet the Opposition on Rev-Up St. Lucia every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So join Leonard Spiderman Toot next week Thursday for another Meet the Opposition. Well, this is the end of my stint here on Rev-Up for today, Thursday, the 21st of August. Thanks for listening. You can join me again tomorrow morning, same time from 5 for another Wake Up and Live. Stand by now for Kina. She's next. She'll be with you until 3 this afternoon. 3 until 5, we have Zen the DJ. 5 to 6, we have Powell Politic with Mary Polius. That's our programming for the rest of today. Do enjoy your Thursday. Andre Paul saying thank you. Bye-bye.